Slow cookers are especially great for busy families, but as with practically any cooking device or method, there are a fair amount of myths about the right way to use a slow cooker. It can all get pretty confusing pretty fast, so let's discard the myths and get cooking. Many home cooks may mistakenly believe that cooking meals in a slow cooker, as opposed to doing the same in an oven, will result in less flavour. That's believed by folks for several reasons, from perceived difficulty of salting and seasoning such a big pot of food, to an inexperienced home cook throwing a whole mix of random raw ingredients into a pot all at once and expecting it to magically blend together after a long cook time. While all that is true to some degree, avoiding these common pitfalls is actually pretty easy. Making a meal in a slow cooker can still be full of flavour if you know how to adapt to the specific method that a slow cooker offers. The top of the list for cooking in a slow cooker is learning how to layer tastes so that every part of the food will have flavour when it's done cooking. That includes tips like softening onions and garlic before throwing them in. It really does make a difference. And while this may add just a little extra effort, a few minutes spent doing something like sautéing aromatics will pay out major flavour dividends later. Also, don't be afraid to season or occasionally taste your slow cooker meal when possible, as that will help you course correct when necessary. Slow cookers are often used in recipes for hearty roasts, and have no doubt that this classic use of a slow cooker is well earned, but that's not all these cooking tools can do for you. In fact, a slow cooker can be very useful to you even if you do not include any meat at all. It is true that slow cookers are good for fattier, tougher cuts of meat because the extended cooking times will help tough meats to become more tender. However, you'll also love it for leaner cuts of meat, along with everything from pork to chicken. Just be sure to adjust cooking times accordingly, as lean cuts may cook faster. Don't be afraid to be creative with different types of meat.
Today, we're talking ham hocks, so get ready to rock out with your hock out.
Yes, slow cookers are great for stews, chili, and soups. Everyone probably knows that already, but slow cookers are more than single-purpose pieces of kitchen equipment taking up valuable storage space. So put a stop to your worries, as there are all sorts of dishes you can make in your slow cooker. In fact, any meals that benefit from slow cooking will excel in this pot. Look at it this way, the slow cook pot is designed to help you prepare any dish that cooks well at a low temperature and takes extended cooking time. That means everything from the creamy mac and cheese to those savoury enchiladas will be perfect in there. Let your imagination run free when it comes to considering just what could be made in a slow cooker. There are a lot of people who still believe that slow cooking pots trap all the moisture from the food, which then waters the whole meal down. While this is true on a certain level, it's not necessarily as bad as most people assume, nor is it even something that you always want to avoid. All you'll need to do is add a bit of cornstarch in the last half hour or so of cooking and finish your meal with the lid off. This will help you to achieve your preferred consistency and give the dish enough time to thicken up to the perfect sauce state. Conversely, that extra liquid can also keep a soup or sauce from over-thickening, resulting in a meal that everyone is going to love. Remember, meat and vegetables often give off a lot of liquid while cooking, and because of the lid, it won't evaporate away like it might in a pot or pan. If you happen to add too much liquid, it can be reduced by cooking on high without the lid for a while. Just remember to keep an eye on it towards the end to make sure the result is to your liking. One of the biggest myths about slow cooking is that you must brown your meat first. While browning the meat can help to add flavour to your final dish, it's also one you can skip if you're short on time. To brown or not to brown? When deciding whether to take the time to brown something before slow cooking, consider the other ingredients in the dish. Are they very flavorful, such as spicy enchiladas or a tomato sauce? Or is it something with a little less kick? If you're cooking something with a mild, subdued flavor, it's worth taking the time for this extra step. But if your dish already has a ton of spice and seasonings, you can safely save yourself some time and skip this. Slow cooking is a moist heat method of cooking, so meat does not brown easily, but you should also keep in mind that browning will dry the meat out more. Also, keep in mind that browning beforehand will shorten the cooking time, as can changing up some settings like the amount of time you should be cooking. Another myth that some people believe is that you should never open the lid when slow cooking. It makes sense since this is a mistake that can happen with your oven, perhaps while baking a cake or cookies. Slow cookers aren't quite so finicky, however, and while frequent, prolonged peaking can lead to heat loss, a quick look isn't going to hurt anything. If you're going to be opening the lid mid-cooking, just try your best to do it quickly and when it's necessary. It even might help in some cases to remove the lid completely near the end of cooking, especially if you're trying to make sure veggies aren't getting overdone. Leaving the lid off towards the end of a cook time will allow the dish to continue gently cooking and thicken slightly, especially if it's set on high. Once the dish is perfect, change the temperature to keep it warm and replace the lid until you're ready to serve for that ideal family dinner.
Elizabeth, honey, how was school today?
I don't know.
Adding frozen meat to a slow cooker is actually perfectly fine, as long as you're careful to do something that you should be doing with meat regardless of the cooking method, keeping an eye on the temperature. The USDA recommends checking all meat and seafood internal temperatures with a thermometer before consumption to prevent foodborne illnesses, and that's the case whether that's on the grill or the stovetop or in the slow cooker. Keep in mind that leaner cuts of meat, such as pork or chicken, will cook faster than fattier, tougher meats like those roasts. That's because a chicken breast doesn't have a lot of connective tissue and fat. So, if you are dealing with a bunch of diced up chicken and want to cook it all day, you may want to use fresh meat rather than frozen, simply to avoid overcooking your meal. However, with beef, using frozen meat is often a good way to go. It's also a great time saver if you already have meat waiting in the freezer and decide that you want to toss it in the slow cooker before you leave for work. For many cuts, there's no real reason to wait for it to defrost. There's no real reason not to use the majority of your slow cooker's volume when making a meal. In fact, Hamilton Beach says that for the best results, you'll want to fill your slow cooker at least halfway, and preferably, you'll want it 2/3 full. Some worry that if they overfill a slow cooker, this will increase cooking time and lead to less flavorful food. But it's actually not a problem. In fact, if you've only filled your slow cooker halfway, you might want to check for doneness 1 to 2 hours earlier than the recipe specifies, as the food is likely cooking faster than you might think. Of course, that's fine if you are on top of it and giving the slow cooker a little extra attention towards the end of the cook process. If cooking soups or stews, remember to leave a 2-inch space between the lid and food itself. That way the recipe has room to come to a simmer without making a mess on your counter. Ultimately, any portion size will be fine in the slow cooker if you adapt for it. The right amount of food in the slow cooker provides the perfect environment for heat to circulate and to braise or simmer at a steady temperature. So just take a minute and decide what's best for your particular meal. Some people are worried about the idea of putting a liner in their slow cooker. For many, it looks like nothing more than a plastic bag. Will it melt? Will it burn? Also, some people are nervous that plastic may contain chemicals that can seep into food and create a serious health problem or two. After all, we know we shouldn't be microwaving a lot of plastics. So is this quasi-mysterious slow cooker liner okay? The reality is that slow cooker liners have been available for quite some time, and nowadays many are free of harmful chemicals like BPA. Many slow cooker users find that liners help them save a lot of time in cleanup. People who use them often do so because they are easy, affordable, and make cleaning up a snap. Of course, you'll want to take a minute to read over any details concerning your liner in the slow cooker manual. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more mashed videos about your favorite kitchen appliances are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.